About 20 years ago, they had the Pepsi Challenge. It was all over the TVs. So what they did here locally was at the Del Mar Fair, they tested 50 people with a blind taste test, and they said that 29 of them said they preferred Pepsi over Coke. So you have to prove, is this enough evidence that proves that most people like Pepsi? So first thing you have to do is figure out what the p-hat is going to be. Okay, this is a sample proportion. So let's figure out what that's going to be. Always find the p-hat first. So you use this formula. P-hat, your sample proportion, equals, that x means the number of successes. In this problem, it's 29 said yes. Out of the total is 50. So let's just go ahead and do a little bit of math. 29 said yes. Out of the total 50, you're going to divide that number. It's going to give you your p-hat value, 0.58%. So second step, you always have to find your standard error. Standard error of p-hat, you're going to use this crazy formula. Standard error of p-hat equals these values. We're just going to plug and chug. And we're going to come up with a real number. So there's our standard error. So now we can start answering this problem. So we have the p-hat and the standard error of the p-hat. We need to basically write the null hypothesis first. Now because they're asking for proof that most people like Pepsi, that means your null hypothesis is going to be that there is no difference, that 50% like Pepsi and 50% like Coke. Remember that at all times. The null hypothesis states there is no difference. So in this problem, we're going to say that the null p is 0.50, but we're trying to prove that most people did in fact like Pepsi, so that means that it would be over 50. So let's go ahead and second step is find a test statistic using this crazy formula here. And we know the values already because we are prepared. So just remember that the p-hat is the sample proportion, okay? So let's plug and let's chug. And we're going to get a value of 1.13. Remember, that's a test statistic. That's a z-score, which you then have to look up on your t-table, which is pretty easy to do. And that gives us, oh, plus, remember, it's a greater than problem. So whatever this value is, we're going to subtract it from 1. So a z of 1.13 gives you a value of 0.8708, but we're going to subtract it from 1 because it's a greater than, and that's going to give us a final p-value of 0.1292. That's kind of a big P. So guess what? It's much bigger than the alpha level, the cutoff level. So we cannot reject the null, and in this particular problem, we're going to say there is not enough data to reject the null, not significant. In other words, this is not enough proof that most people like Pepsi. That's it. MGZ out.